Brief exercise 5-3 is an activity-based costing question, and I'm just going to read the required. It says compute the unit product cost of each of the products listed above. So it wants the product costs of K425 and M67. So when we're doing the complete product cost, we need to include the direct materials plus the direct labor plus the applied manufacturing overhead. And the applied manufacturing overhead is what we're calculating right now. Klumper Corporation is a diversified manufacturer of industrial goods. The company's ABC system has the following 6 activity cost pools and activity rates. So I see the activity cost pools, I see how they're measuring them, but then I see the rates right here. So they already calculated the predetermined overhead rates for us. Oh, I don't know why it keeps going on that one. I won't do anything there. So they already did step 6 for us. So all we need to do is step 7. So it tells us that the cost and activity data have been supplied for the following products. K425, M67. This information is not relevant for us right now. When we're applying activity-based costing, it'll help us to price out the entire product, so I'm just going to skip that for now. So here's all of the expected activity. So I've got direct labor hours, machine setups, production orders, shipments, and I put general factory in here because they didn't in the original question, but I know it's one of the activities in the cost pool. So I just put it down here to remind myself. So what I need to do is just copy the activity cost pools. So again, I'd probably take it right from here. And I'll just move over here and do the work. Maybe move this up a bit. There we go. So I've got my activity cost pools, and then I want to see how they are being measured. So that's the measurement. So I'll put that right beside there. And now I'll line up my 2 products. So K425 and M67. And now I'm going to do step 7. So with K425, I'm going to take my direct labor hours, the 160, and then multiply that by my activity rate, so $18. So that's the predetermined overhead rate. Then I'll do the machine hours. So I'll take my machine hours, so that's 200 for that product, and then multiply it by the rate for machine hours. That's 18. Machine setups, I'll find out how many setups for K425. There's 3. And then I'll multiply that by the predetermined overhead rate, which is 50 per setup. Production orders, there's also 3. And then I'll multiply that by my orders, which is 120 per order. My shipments are also 3. And then I'm going to multiply that by my $18. And my general factory is based off of direct labor hours, so 160 labor hours, but I'm using a different predetermined overhead rate for it. I'm using 38. So now if I add these together, I get 13124. So that's total applied manufacturing overhead. Now if I want it by unit, So all of these questions, you can either do a total amount or you can do it by unit. So let's just see what that would look like per unit. So if we actually go up to this information now, and it tells me that K425 was 400 units that we produced, I'll just put that there. So I'll just say number of units produced. If you just divide that, so take the 13124 and divide the 400, you'll end up with a total of $32.81 per unit. So this is applied manufacturing overhead per unit. So whenever they want units instead of total, you just always divide it by the number of production. Okay, so now let's do M67. And just remember, these are dollar amounts that we're calculating, and this is the activity over here. So for M67, my direct labor hours were 1,000. And I'm going to use the same predetermined overhead rate as the other product, $18. They don't need to be bold. With machine hours, I'm going to take the 3,000 and then I'm going to multiply that by the same predetermined overhead rate for machine hours, $18. Machine setups, I have 6 for M67, and I'm going to multiply 6 setups by $50 per setup. Production orders, I'm going to take 6, and if you move over here, it says what it's for too. So 6 production orders, and it is 120. Shipments are also 6, so that's 6. Oh, I gotta check. If I did that right. Shipments are 20. And then I'm going to multiply the shipments, the 20 shipments by $18 per shipment. And then general factory is 1,000 direct labor hours. And then I'm going to multiply that by my predetermined overhead rate for general factory, which is 38. And now I'll add all of these together as well. So I did give check figures, so let's make sure that this one's right. 111380. Yep. And then 13124. That one's correct. So you can see how easy it is to make a mistake when we're using Excel. When we accidentally try and take the activity and multiply it by the predetermined overhead rate, we could easily take the wrong activity on the wrong line and use the wrong rate. So it's easy to make a slip up. Okay, so the number of units produced for M67, number of units produced, is not 400, it's 4,000. So we actually produced more. So I'm going to use the 4,000 here. Then that way, with M67, if I take 111380 and divide that by 4,000, I get 2785 per unit of applied manufacturing overhead. In this question, they didn't tell me what the actual was, so I can't figure out if I'm over or under applied, but this part of the question is more interested on what cost you used for this product. So I calculated the applied manufacturing overhead, so I'll grab those two numbers, the 3281 and the 2785. And in the question, they told me what the direct materials were. So for K425, the direct materials were 126, and the direct labor was 1150. For M67, the direct materials was 212 and the direct labor was 720. So just remember, direct labor and direct material, those costs aren't hard to get because we know what we pay our employees and we know what we have to pay for our materials. The harder one to allocate is all of the indirect manufacturing overhead, which is the factory rent, the factory insurance, the salaries and wages of the supervisors of the factory, and so on. So we can't use those actuals. We don't know them until the end of the year. So that's why we just guess. And we're using activity-based costing to guess instead of job costing to guess. So we have to use something while we're working on our products. Something is better than nothing. Okay, so total product cost. Remember, total product cost is always direct materials plus direct labor plus applied manufacturing overhead. So I've got 170 and 31 cents per unit on K425. And if I add these ones up, direct materials plus direct labor plus manufacturing overhead, oh, too many pluses, I get 247.05 cents for the product cost. And let's just double check them to my check figures. 170.31 and 247.05. So those are correct. And once we have the costs for the product, then we'll be able to better price out what we're going to sell it as, and then the rest is going to be our margin.